Hola, it's Joe Pardavila. Welcome back to the Forbes Books podcast. So, you want to be an entrepreneur? Well, did you know that millions of people started a business during the pandemic? That's on top of the fact that there's this pandemic and the entrepreneur failure rate is not very good. So, what steps can you take to ensure your success in entrepreneurship? It sometimes just takes a little help from a friend. Joining me today is Mari Tautimes. She's a world-class speaker, trainer, coach, and mentor who's on a mission to help entrepreneurs rediscover freedom and joy. Mari, how you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm excellent. And so I'm going to ask a really tough question out of the box. You are a professional EOS implementer. What is that?
So it's not to be confused with the gym EOS. It actually stands for Entrepreneurial Operating System is what EOS stands for. So the Entrepreneurial Operating System is a system that organizations that have between 10 and 250 employees would bring in to help them get much more clear on their vision, help their leadership team really start to gain consistent traction in their business through discipline, accountability, structure. And then it also helps with team health, which is oftentimes a serious issue for, small to mid-level size organizations. Well, probably any organization. And so as an EOS implementer, I just do that for a living. I go into organizations and help with that.
And so do you have any specialties? Like, I know it's small, medium business, but like, are there some that you like, yeah, Mari's the one, you go for this? Or are you just a jack of all trades when it comes to EOS implementation?
So EOS works in such a way that it doesn't really matter what the industry is, which is what I love. So no 2 days are the same. I have one client that's an HVAC company, another client's an asphalt company, another client is a marijuana company. It doesn't matter. It's really that what's true is that every organization struggles with the same 136 issues. And so to the extent that we can kind of get really clear about how to get through those things, then we can achieve phenomenal results regardless of the industry. I would say that what makes me unique is there are over 400 of us that do what we do. And I think that something that makes me unique is my 22-year entrepreneurial journey with my own family business, as well as an obsessive thirst for learning from Tony Robbins, going to Business Mastery and Keith Cunningham, and just a lot of the business greats, reading every book. So a lot of that comes into the session room too. You can't help but that, business psychology training come into play along with the entrepreneurial operating system. But the system is the system. It doesn't matter who is the implementer. It works as long as you follow it. It's just kind of which flavor of implementer would you prefer to work with?
And so when you're working with these many different companies, it sounds like with your experience and learning the EOS model, how difficult is that transition for folks? Because not to put down like an asphalt company, but it seems like an asphalt company learning about EOS seems like, square peg in a round hole kind of thing. So is there some sort of transition period there where they have to learn these steps that you're showing them along the way?
There is. It depends on how well established the leadership team is. And so in this one case, we had a very well established leadership team. And so we just got to come in and execute EOS and just teach them the disciplines, the principles, and off they went. They really had a lot of success with it right out of the gate. There are other organizations that don't even really know who should be on the leadership team. Or they think they know, but then you get a couple of sessions in and that person may not be working out. And so sometimes there's some heavy lifting that EOS just by nature does to really get crystal clear about, do we have the right people? Are they in the right seats? Jim Collins popularized that in his book, Good to Great. But in EOS, we actually have a way to very black and white sort out, do we have the right people in the right seats? And so EOS can accelerate those kinds of people moves and much faster and much more, I want to say emotion free. It's not completely unemotional. I mean, whenever you have changes in a leadership team, it's painful. Yeah. And humans, that's hard work for sure. But it's easy to look at the system and go, but it makes sense. Like, this is the right move.
And I'm curious, and I don't know what the data is, and I could be making this up, but I feel like a lot of small and medium-sized businesses have a family business aspect to it, whether it's husband and wife, father, son, mother, daughter. How tricky has your experience been with EOS implementation when it comes to family-run businesses?
It's so perfect for family-run businesses because what it does is it removes a lifetime of history and emotion and feeling and roles, and instead just says, what does the business need? And so early on in the business, we may have needed to have hired, cousin Susie because we had a position and she kind of knew how to do that thing. And then, hey, doesn't your brother do that? And so we bring that person in. And so we build a business initially, and initially that works. That gets us to a certain place. But then we have to move to the next place. And as so many business owners know, the things that get you to where you are not going to be the same things that get you to where you need to go. And so sometimes that means having these open, honest, very transparent conversations with family members, because what EOS does is it is a structure first, people second approach, meaning I don't care who's in which seats, everyone's out of a seat, and we need to redesign this as a blank canvas and say, what does the organization need to get to the next level? And then, do we have the right people? So it doesn't really matter what your family history is and who's been here the longest and who did what. And it's very clearly black and white. This is what the company needs. And you know what, Dad? You know what, brother or sister? It's not you. And because of the way the program works, they usually see it before it even needs to be called out, that they're just not the right fit anymore.
Interesting. And I'm a big proponent about talking about self-awareness. And I feel like the most self-aware business people, entrepreneurs, are the most successful. So I get the feeling that the people that are most self-aware are the ones who know and identify that they need an EOS program. Is that correct? Or do you think people can stumble onto EOS? Or is it more of like this sort of intentional self-awareness, like we're missing that one thing?
There has to be a self-awareness. In fact, in our target market, what we're looking for very specifically on the psychographic profile are people that are open, honest, they're vulnerable, they understand that there may be some things that they could learn here. And so they may have stumbled into it, to your point. They may have read Traction, which is the book that EOS kind of is described in by Gino Wickman. Who knows how they get into EOS? It doesn't really matter how they got there. Once they get there, if they are not self-aware, to your point, and they don't go, you know what, I don't know what to do next, or I'm not really sure. Or sometimes the leader that brings me in does know, but the rest of the team doesn't. And they can't systematically teach everybody in this very cadenced way, like, okay, everyone, now we're going to read this book and now we're going to implement this thing and then we're going to start to do this. It's very hard for someone to run a business and teach a system like this. And so as long as they've got the self-awareness, we'll come in and do kind of the heavy lifting, even though the leader may have the capacity to do it. They may have taken training like this in the past. But there's something to having that third party in the room that's guiding the team through it. I've had some entrepreneurs say, I know all of this stuff. I don't want to be the one to get my team there. So that's an acceptable, I know everything. Otherwise, if you know everything, then EOS probably isn't for you.
Yeah, and to bring do a callback of the Jim Collins book, Good to Great. Like when you read that, you're like, man, this is all really obvious. This sold 10 million copies or whatever million copies. It is funny how like the simplest thing sometimes what is it? You see the trees beyond the forest, whatever that cliche is. Like I feel like that happens a lot in the world of business.
Oh, it does. I mean, that's the funny thing. So in Traction and in EOS, I had already read all these books. But what EOS does is it takes all of these books and turns it into an extremely simple system. And the issue with how simple the system is that people confuse it with easy. Simple does not mean easy. And so it's kind of the same thing with Jim Collins, where it's like, wait, that's it? Like that's it? Yeah, but it's not easy. This is not easy work to do. And so the brilliance behind what Gino Wickman put together is the simplicity, but also the cadence and the order that we teach things. So we get the leadership team together for a full day session. We teach them a bunch of stuff. We do some work, we do some heavy lifting, and then they go back into the business for 30 days. They implement the things that we learned. Then we get back together again for a full day session. They learn a bunch of new stuff. They go back in. So like, that's the kind of thing that I can't see another way to get that kind of cadenced together, all together learning and growing and developing together as a really healthy, cohesive, functional leadership team.
And so for someone listening to this about and finding more about EOS as we're talking about it, how long does it take to implement it? And I know you say the structure is the structure, but is there like this takes 30 days, 60 days, 90 days? What's the general overall timeline?
So what we say is that the EOS journey is 2 years, and it breaks down to about 5 sessions per year. So there's about 10 sessions that happen, full day sessions over the course of 2 years. And then our ultimate goal is to graduate them so that they can do it on their own. If we're doing work that's embedding us in your business, then we're doing the wrong work. The goal is to get you self-sufficient and operating 100% on your own, and then we get out.
And is it sort of like school where, Mary, you'll run into someone who you're implementing the system with and they like get it right away, and like a few months into it, they're carving things up, they're rolling, but there's some that may take those full 2 years to really get their footing with it?
I'd say it ends up being about 2 years in either case.
Okay.
Because it does happen that people could graduate early, but even if you've got people that are cutting it up could mean that the whole leadership team is turned over. That's happened for one of my clients, right? So like they're getting it, and what they're getting is that the team that we have now is not going to be the team that's going to get us to where we need to go. And there's almost 100% turnover in the leadership team. That can happen. It doesn't happen every time, but a lot of times getting it can mean some disruption, and you kind of need to just hang on to the system even more and even deeper to get through that patch. But then of course you get to the other side and it's like a completely new organization with the right people in the right seats. You know, people before would be scared of the things that you're talking about doing when you really name the vision that you want for the organization long term, because they don't know how to do those things. And you get the right people in and they're like, not only could I do that, but I could do this and this and this and this. And you're like, what? So, you know, and then those people have to learn EOS. So it really does take about 2 years.
Okay. And I'm sure you probably get those people, man, I could have probably done this myself. It seems so obvious, all the things you're telling me, Mary.
Right.
I'm sure you
all
get
the
that.
time.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, the pandemic there's some weird after effects with the pandemic. You had like the housing market go crazy. You had supply chain issues, but you also saw this explosion in entrepreneurship. This was just reported by the U.S. Census Bureau that business applications of all sizes nearly doubled during the first few months of the pandemic last year, jumping from 234,000 in April to 500,000 in July. Wow. So there is this entrepreneurial explosion that we've probably never seen since like the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. Mm-hmm. So what is it like out there to be an entrepreneur in this, post-pandemic world?
I think that it's so exciting. I'm calling it the employee revolution. I don't know if that's actually a thing, but I think it's so exciting that people are really inspired to get after their very best life. And so for some people that they think that that's entrepreneurship. I will say that I think entrepreneurship is overpopularized. Because of that, people try to make it look easier than it is. It is an extremely risky and terrifying road that if you don't have, a year or two of income or some, scenario that you can really afford to take that risk. I think a lot of people, unfortunately, are going to discover that entrepreneurship is not really the path for them, but they're going to learn a ton of stuff along the way. So I hope success to most of them, but the statistics, like 80% of businesses fail within the first 12 months or something like that. I hope that's not true. I hope a lot of people have a lot of success, but what they might discover is that they love being in an entrepreneurial company. So it may not be your company, but what you might be looking for now for your dream employment is to work in an entrepreneurial company because there are just opportunities there to learn and grow and develop that are not available in big corporate America or places that are really, really established. And so I think the pendulum is going to kind of start to swing back the other way. A lot of people are going to realize, okay, that wasn't, quite that level of risk wasn't for me, but hopefully they discovered the beautiful opportunity in entrepreneurship and want to participate in an entrepreneurial company and be a really fantastic number two to a visionary, or maybe sit in a marketing seat or an ops seat and have even better opportunities there.
It's funny, I brought this up before, Mary, but as a Gen Xer, the word and title entrepreneur was almost like a punchline. Like I remember as a kid, if someone said they were an entrepreneur, everyone would be like, oh, so you're unemployed. So it's funny how that word has transformed now to this sort of air of, it's like sort of like the way we canonize CEOs now, which I think sometimes is very creepy. But it's weird how that word has taken a different meaning in this, the 2000s.
Yeah, I think that it's made out to be a lot sexier than it is. I think my favorite speaker on this subject is Gary Vaynerchuk, and talking about, like, you have no idea the amount of hours that it takes. I can't tell you in my own business, as an EOS implementer, also, writing a book and also getting a couple other businesses going. There are many nights that I'm here till 8 o'clock at night. There are many days that I'm up at 4 o'clock in the morning. It is not sexy. It is for the parts that people get to see, like they get to see that tip of the iceberg, but it is not for the faint of heart. It is not for people that are waiting for handouts. It is not for people that are expecting to be told what to do next. It's kind of like raising kids. Like, there's no manual really. I mean, there's EOS, of course, but EOS isn't really for startups. It's for companies that, really understand and know what their product and service is. EOS isn't going to help them figure that out. So you have to know what that is first. And so in my other work that I do, so I wrote this book, #KeepGoing, and I'm launching this coaching program along with it to help people get really clear about vision that they have for their life, whether that's entrepreneurial or otherwise. Get really crystal clear about what it is that they want, and then understand how to back into a plan to get to that. And then maybe they can even take that plan to their employer and say, look, here's what I really want to achieve in the next 5 years in my life, in my career. And then they can work together on that plan, and we can have more open, honest, transparent conversations about the fact that we don't expect our employees to be with us for 20 years, and they don't expect to be in their position for 20 years. And everything says people want to move around in a company and learn how to do, multiple things and see what works for them. And so I just think there's a really exciting new approach to entrepreneurial employees, leadership team members. And I think it all starts with, even for the entrepreneur themselves, what is it that you really, really want for your life, and getting really crystal clear about that. And then how does this business serve that as a possibility?
It seems like you're serving two masters here, because with the EOS, you're dealing at the granular level of a company. And now with your book and your other company, it seems like you're more big picture vision stuff. Am I reading correctly there?
Yeah. So it turns out that before I was an EOS implementer, I was a visionary of an organization that we sold last year for $16 million. And in my visionary seat, I can't help but see what's possible for myself, for my own life. And I'm really excited about helping other people see that. And so it's really, at this point, it's more just my passion. My mission is to help people crush, this is going to sound wild, but I really want to help people crush 300 million ceilings in around the world. I want people to see what's possible, and every single quarter, I want to help them work towards that through training that I've had from Stephen Covey and Tony Robbins. And I don't think it's fair. I feel extremely fortunate that I had the opportunity to attend all of those training programs. And as you know, a lot of that stuff is thousands of dollars and not really attainable to most people. And so I'm trying to deliver it in a way out to the world, first to show them what's possible. And it's my story of going from a 15-year-old teenage mom to a successful entrepreneur and CEO, and kind of everything in between, so that people can see, like, how do you make that journey from an administrative assistant into the CEO seat? What does that actually look like over this period of time? But then also, like, what are we facing too at home? Because I do not believe that the entrepreneurial journey is compartmentalized from our home lives. I think that's how it's been for a long time. And I think that COVID has really shifted that. But in my book, I make no attempt to tease apart the fact that I was gaining 100 pounds along the way, or that I was losing my marriage along the way of building an entrepreneurial company. And so I want people to experience what that journey is like, to go from being on welfare to where I have the opportunity to be now, and just to see how it could be done. So I want them to feel inspired by that, first of all. And then secondly, I've got a 7-step program. Like, how do you do this for your own life? If you see something better for your own life, something that you're really excited or passionate about, how do you create that vision? How do you back into it? And I think everybody deserves that opportunity. I don't think that it should be just for entrepreneurial owners of companies. I don't think it should just be for a certain class of people. I think everyone should set that vision. And something that I love also about Gary Vee is that he talks about, look, maybe in your life, $53,000 a year working in a position in an organization is enough, and that it's your happiest and best work. I think it's total bullshit. If I'm allowed to say bullshit,
Sure you are.
It's total bullshit that everyone should be a millionaire and everyone should have yachts and popping bottles and having these lives of traveling around the world. I think it's devastating that people aren't focused in on their own life and what truly makes them happy, what really makes them happy versus comparing themselves to other people. And so I'm trying to really give people a path back to themselves, back to what they would consider success to be, and then just help them do it.
That's awesome. And you know what's scary to me, and I think it's great what you're doing and how you're helping entrepreneurs is, and this explosion of entrepreneurs, if you've noticed, the smartest people in the planet, the people who go to these elite schools, whether it's Stanford, Harvard, fill in the blank, they're all going to school for one reason, so they can go build an app one day.
Right.
And I feel like we're losing opportunity for these people that are a lot smarter than I am, who could come up with something that could change the world, as opposed to another app that changes your face in a photo. So how do you wrap your brain around that when it comes to the next generation of folks, where it's all about, like you said, it's all about making money. It's not about being a millionaire anymore. It's about being a billionaire. It's like coming up with the next app. How do you manage that?
I think that it comes down to, how do you provide more value than anyone else in your relationships, in your business, in your life? Is the product or service that you're creating really going to improve people's lives? Is it really going to add value? And if not, then I would want to go work for somebody that is doing that kind of work. And I totally agree that, having a successful app is like becoming an NBA player. I think it's highly improbable. And so I used to say this about my competition. I used to say, I never pay attention to what my competition is doing because I'm afraid that I might accidentally follow them into where they went, right?
Right.
That would be tragic. And that's what's happening for people's lives. They're just paying so much attention to other people's lives and what's going on TikTok and what's going on in this or that, this social feed. And they're accidentally following people into that path. And they're not considering what brings them joy, and they're not considering what brings other people actual value. Like, people are, trying to create this social following, and they want to have all these likes and all these people following because if I get eyeballs and I get dollars. And I told my daughter, she like every 13-year-old today wants to have a YouTube channel.
Sure.
Makes sense. Like, I get why they think that. And I said, I will never let you do something like that unless you are providing real, actual value. This isn't just a you show to see what we can get. Like, how are you making people's lives better? And people need to do some self-reflection and ask that question. And is this work that I really love? Or am I accidentally following people down a path? I was at a Tony Robbins event once, and Tony asked this guy, how much money would you need to have everything that you ever need? Like, you don't ever have to work again. How much money is that? And the guy just said, like, I don't know, $20 million. And Tony's like, well, why is that? What are some things that you want? And he said, well, I want a private jet. And Tony said, do you want the jet or do you want the lifestyle? And the guy's like, oh, I guess I don't really want the jet. I want the lifestyle. So I'm writing down in my little booklet, which I had never done this exercise before, and I'm writing down jet. And I had never even had the thought before of having a personal jet. And so then I came back home and I was like going through my notes and I was like resetting my plan for my life. And I had this note there, jet. And when I really thought about it, I have zero interest in that or that lifestyle. That's not me. And it was my first awakening to this idea that it's neat to go get inspired and see what other people think is interesting. I think that's healthy. I think that's a healthy activity. But to come back to yourself and go, okay, now for me, is that really what I want? Do I want to have the kind of lifestyle where I'm managing a private jet? I really don't. I really don't want to be Tony Robbins with 31 companies and a ton of responsibility and billions of dollars. I love billions of dollars. I don't want all of the stuff that goes along with it. So I have to decide, what do I want? I really want rich relationships. I want a network of people that I want to spend time with and that I love being with. I want to have great relationships with my kids. I want to build a business that really provides value in people's lives. and I want to make a good living doing it. And so what we've decided in our own family is how much is enough? Like, what do we actually need? And there's ways to figure that out. How much is enough? And then everything over that, we're going to give back into our local city in Phoenix and wherever else we can. And my mission is to accumulate as much wealth as I possibly can, not for me and my family, but because I feel like that's the real opportunity of building a really great business and making a ton of money, is being able to pump that back in and change other people's lives. So that's our mission.
It seems of the two missions, your EOS one, it seems a little more attainable from what you're doing than your big mission here with hashtag how to keep going. Is that daunting to you? Like, man, what I do with EOS is like, I do the system. I'm an expert. I know it well. But this other mission, it's grand. It's grandiose. It's huge. Do you sometimes think like, I don't know if I can do this?
No, I have no question. But now the good thing is that I have given myself 30 years to do it. So it's not something I don't believe. I think that people really underestimate what it takes to build something really great. And I really want to build something really, really great, something that really changes millions of lives. There's no short-term goal on that other than who are the first 10 people that I can help, and then who are the next 10 people that I can help. And then over 30 years, I hope that will grow. It is, it's like Jim Collins, back to Jim Collins, big, hairy, audacious, right? Like, I am so excited about it and about what's possible that I don't know, that kind of pulls me forward. I don't worry about it at all. And I have unlimited energy for it because it's my true passion. EOS and helping entrepreneurial companies is awesome. It is amazing work, and I get to change lives through that work too. So it's phenomenal. And I think that, I don't know if I should say this out loud, but I'm even more passionate about someone who doesn't realize what's possible for their life, understanding for the first time that they really can create something wonderful for them, their definition of it, and get after it. I'm more passionate about that because that's where I came from. Like this 15-year-old that's like, shit, like I gotta, like I have to do something with my life now. Like I get a little emotional just thinking about it. But like I was terrible at school, terrible. Like they even thought I had special needs. Like I had no business in school. I was a horrible student. And then when I got pregnant with my son, I was on a mission. I'm like, I got to do something. And so I feel very fortunate between that situation and really having to be very deliberate about what I was going to do with my life. I think that was a real blessing for my life. And then another thing too that happened is I lost my brother, my oldest brother. He was 23 when I was 19 in a motorcycle accident. And I think that was another event in my life that really shaped my perception of what are we here to do and how much time do you have to do it. And so I had this like every single day, it was like a full court press because I'm like, I don't know if I got tomorrow. But like, some people say, oh, tomorrow isn't guaranteed. And I'm like, yeah, you might say that, but I know that in my body. Like I have been through that experience. And so I'm really driven to make sure that my time here is useful and is helpful to other people, and that, I'm really fulfilled while I'm here. I think it matters.
Where did that come from to turn your light out? Because I can imagine when you're struggling and dealing with the issues you had to deal with early on in your life, it's all about surviving, right? It's all about like, how do I get food on the table? How do I raise a kid? When did that switch flip where it was like, it's not just about helping me and helping my family, it's about helping other people? Is there a point in your life, the Oprah Winfrey aha moment, where you're like, I shouldn't just have to worry about myself. I've got to try to help others?
So the first time I ever even had that thought was when I found out that I was pregnant and I was 15. I was so overwhelmed by the experience that I almost was kind of removed from my body in a way. And I started looking at my life like a movie. And it was the only way I could get through it. I later learned, I didn't know at the time that it was a coping mechanism, but I was like, okay, so if this is a movie, if my life is a movie, then I have to make sure that it has a really good ending. And the reason that I have this movie with a really great ending is because there's an audience, and the audience is going to have to know how to do these things. And so that was my first memory of Okay. And what that helped me with is each next difficult thing that I had to go through, I just put it back into that context. Okay, I'm going to have to learn how to do this so that it makes for a really great ending so I can show other people how to do it. So I always had that sort of in the back of my head as a driving force, that everything I was going through really was for other people to learn. I didn't have any idea that I would have the opportunity to get to where I get to be today. And so once we sold our company, and I became an implementer and I was able to take care of my family, then I was like a little bit lost, honestly, because your identity is so caught up in the work that you do. And I'm like, well, then what's next? And I'm like, well, here's your opportunity. The thing that I've been talking about in my mind for all of these years, I now have to figure out how to actually do that. Like, how do I share this with an audience and show them how to do it? And so the idea to write a book came to me. I thought, okay, then maybe that's how I get it out into the world. And it's just sort of evolved from there.
Well, I hope you're also good at a calendar, because you've got this EOS business, you've got the coaching business, a book, and a podcast on the way. So are you good with time management, I guess, is my last question.
Yes, I'm very good with time management, and I'm smart enough to have an assistant who's even better at it than I am. Otherwise, I think I would mess it up.
Awesome. Her name is Mari Tautimes. She's a professional EOS implementer and so much more. For more information, check out maritautimes.com. Mari, thank you very much for the time. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Thanks, Joe. I did too.
And that's a wrap for another edition of the Forbes Books Podcast. If you enjoy the show, make sure you take a second to subscribe so you automatically get my new shows when they drop. Also, if you have a minute, I would love if you left us a review so more amazing entrepreneurs like yourself can discover the show. And please, don't forget the golden rule and treat others as you want to be treated. Thanks for listening. Until next time, adios.
This has been a production of Forbes Books Radio. Find out more at ForbesBooksRadio.com.